Yo, I'm Gunnar here with Thrifty Traveler Executive Editor Kyle Potter. But today we have an extra special guest
in the middle seat
42B. It's TT founder and CEO Jared Kamrowski. Jared, welcome to your show.
Thank you. This is all I get for my sponsorship.
This is all you get.
The very awkward middle seat.
If you're not watching this on YouTube, you really need to be, because it is cramped quarters, not unlike a Spirit Airbus A319. We're having fun here at TTHQ today.
We're here to talk to Jared about what he's seen in the last 10 years of Thrifty Traveler, and I bet you he did not expect to be sitting middle seat between two guys that he hired 10 years later, but there it is. First, Jared, I do need to find something out from you. So you've been running this successful business for like 10 years now. Your company survived a pandemic and evolved in this crazy, ever-changing world. So why are you willing to throw it all away by giving Kyle and I a podcast?
You know, when you feel like you're cornered and you have no way out, what do?
You react.
Yeah.
You fight or flight.
I gave you guys this podcast. What a gift.
Yeah.
And now, what are you doing with it?
You made it to 10 years. You're not going to make it to 11.
I'm throwing it all away. But at least we're going to have fun doing it.
There we go. Good way to go.
Yeah. Today on the last ever episode of the Thrifty Traveler podcast, we're going to talk to Jared about Thrifty Traveler and everything he's seen in more than a decade of travel and points and miles. We're going to talk about what he's done right and what he's done wrong, some of his favorite deals over the years, and much more. So welcome to the Thrifty Traveler podcast. So let's jump into something hot and something cold, where we look into the good and the bad of travel. And because we're pre-recording this episode, we're going to shake things up. Kyle, start with something hot.
We are breaking the fourth wall by telling everybody we're pre-recording this episode. No, Jared, tell us about the best flight of your life.
The best flight of my life would be, I think, Emirates first class. Not a specific routing. I got pretty lucky to have flown Emirates first quite a few times, and I've had some incredible flights.
Is it the seat in particular, flying the Game Changer on their select number of 777s? Is it the service? Is it the bottomless dom, the shower? I mean, there's so much you can list, and I'm sure there are elements of this where it just all combines into this massive, unforgettable experience. But what stands out to you the most these years later?
I think the consistent service is probably one of the highlights that you can always count on. Not always, but more often than not. Even when you're flying first class, you can't always count on really good service. But with Emirates, it seems like they really have, just a great service offering. And the bottomless dom does help.
It doesn't hurt. No. I think that's interesting, because I think, what draws people into, this, our weird little corner of the internet, is the fancy pictures of business class and first class suites with doors. But I think pretty quickly, as you do this, if you're lucky enough to do this more, you figure out that what really differentiates everything is the service. That really bad service can wreck even the most amazing seats in the world on a plane, and really good service can make a flight in an decade-old plane with seats that barely recline lie flat unforgettable.
I couldn't agree more.
Next time you book it, how would you like to do it? What's the best way to book Emirates F for you?
Oh, yeah, booking Emirates F is tough right now.
It is.
It used to be, with Alaska miles, you could book, 100,000 Alaska miles and you could go far. And now with the taxes and fees, it's incredibly difficult. So, I'd probably say, going to Europe on one of those Fifth Freedom routes would probably be the ticket.
Nice. Very good. All right, let's go the other way, because points and miles award travel, it's a little glossy, a lot of Instagram people in fancy seats and fancy people like you, Jared, flying Emirates first class. But travelers don't see that it's often a comedy of errors for people like us too. And people make mistakes along the way. Is there a mistake that jumps out at you from your years of playing this game that still haunts you?
I feel like anyone who has flown enough makes some colossal mistakes. And mine is particularly embarrassing. I flew Ryanair. I was in charge of traveling with 6 other family members. And
just you could hit pause there. Flying Ryanair with 6 other family members, and be like, and then it was terrible. Yeah, no.
And I think still a newbie. And I made the colossal mistake of showing up to the airport without checking in, getting a boarding pass, doing any of the Ryanair required things.
Yeah.
Which cost me, I think, for 6 people to get checked in, get your boarding pass. I think it costs like $280.
Wow.
And my family, actually my in-laws looked at me with just disgust.
So this guy is married to our daughter and runs a travel company, huh?
Yeah, but doesn't know anything.
Yeah, no, great.
Things are going great.
Nothing worse than when you're the travel guy in a group and then you bungle something really bad on the trip and everyone is just thinking to themselves like, man, you are the only person who is technically an expert at this and you just blew it. That's the worst feeling, traveling with a group.
They just stare at you in disbelief.
You were supposed to fix this. Have either of you ever booked a flight for the wrong day? Like after factoring in time changes or date changes, crossing international date lines or the length of the flight, just wound up booking it for a day too late?
Me, never, but I'm sure Gunnar has.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have. I always, usually I catch it within 24-hour rule.
Sure.
But I've definitely done it several times. I just never screwed up by the date line, just sloppiness,
I can see that based on your work.
Yeah, thanks, boss. Appreciate you bringing me on and giving me a podcast. But yeah, I've definitely done that, booking the wrong day. I also had a Qatar business class flight where they changed the date of the flight. It was taking off at like 10 p.m. and they moved it to 1 a.m. And they didn't re-ticket me until we got to the gate. And it was for my honeymoon. It was the very first business class flight that my wife ever took. And we got to the front and I was like, I swear you can just book it for this few points. And she thought I was scamming her the whole time. And then we got to the front desk and they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. What are you doing here? And she was like, I can't believe it. You blew our honeymoon with this award travel nonsense. And yeah, she doesn't let me forget that one. But that was they changed the date on me. I didn't book the wrong date. So, or so I say.
You still screwed up. There was just there was a layer of complication behind that mistake.
That's fair.
This episode is brought to you by my personal favorite advertiser, us. Let's talk a little bit about Thrifty Traveler Premium, guys. I might be biased. Gunnar, you might be biased. Jared, I'd wager you might be a little biased.
A bit.
But I do truly believe it's the best flight deal service on the market. I just want to talk about one of my personal favorite flight deals because I just took it recently, flying Qatar Q Suites from Cape Town to Doha. That's about a 10-hour flight. And then Doha to Miami, another 15 hours for 95,000 points, which I transferred from Amex, and about $300 in fees. It's one of the best flight deals in the world. Jared, what stands out to you about Thrifty Traveler Premium? Just pick a deal that comes to mind as one of the best that you've found or that our team has found.
I think, any of the first class deals that we've found, whether it's, Etihad Apartments, Emirates First Class, which I already said that I love. There's so many more. Like you said, Qatar First Class. I think it's pretty obvious right now. I have a first class obsession and I'm feeling pretty bougie.
They're called first class problems, I believe.
Thrifty Traveler, bougie traveler.
Well, just so we're clear, we also send cheap domestic flight deals. We sent one, just a few weeks ago, $78 round trip to Chicago from airports all across the country. One of the best flight deals of 2024 was a mistake fare from both Minneapolis and Chicago to Dublin for $135 round trip. I still can't wrap my head around that one. And I think collectively, we probably heard from hundreds of people who booked that single flight deal.
Yeah, I feel like there's, with Thrifty Traveler Premium, there's so many different types of customers. Whether you want to be, booking that $100 mistake fare, or you want to be flying a business or first class product, we've got it all covered.
Yeah, quick inbox check on Thrifty Traveler Premium right now. I'm seeing Cathay Pacific business class to Southeast Asia for 71,000 points each way. That's an incredible deal, flying in the front of the plane. Then we've got Prague under $489 round trip, a bunch of fares in the 400s and 300s there, flying Icelandair with free Iceland stopovers on that one. And then we also have the new Delta route from Atlanta to Marrakesh, and we found that for $608 round trip, or as low as 48,000 Sky Miles round trip. So pretty unbelievable deals in your inbox right now if you're a premium subscriber.
I'm feeling an itch to book something. It's been a while.
Oh, he's feeling pretty good. He's feeling booky.
You gotta give us like another 30 minutes here before you can quit on us. All right, gang. Sign up today at thriftytraveler.com/premium. As a special treat, our podcast listeners can use the promo code TTPOD for $20 off your first year of flight deal alerts. That's thriftytraveler.com/premium. Enter the promo code TTPOD, 5 letters, all one word, for $20 off your first year.
All right, let's do our featured topic this week that we call the extra mile. We got a lot of questions for our boss here, and we're excited to hear. So Thrifty Traveler is quickly approaching its 10th birthday. What was Jared Kamrowski like 10 years ago? What was going on, and how did this all start?
Yeah, 10 years ago, I was the guy who felt like he had a problem. He was obsessed with points and miles. There were very few people that were doing this, and it was all I could think about. So I decided, after years and years of prodding from my wife, to launch Thrifty Traveler.
What started you down that path of getting kind of obsessed with this world and then turning that obsession into your career? I mean, did you make that transition pretty instantly of, starting a company and then quickly realizing, oh, this is something that isn't just going to be something I do on the side, but is going to be my work?
Yeah, no, it really started back, probably 2009. I was living with my co-founder, Nick Cerati. And we got into points and miles, and we're like, what is this all about?
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. The amount of value, just how much it was kind of like the Wild West. And again, when you tell outsiders about it, they would immediately be like, oh, you're doing something illegal.
Like, it still does feel like that, just to be clear. But it was this was a different time. We're talking about more than a decade ago.
Yes.
Or almost a decade ago, I should
say. Yeah.
No,
15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is a crazy amount of time now looking back. And that's, probably 2009, 2010. I was like, this is super cool. And I think the thing that really drove me, towards actually starting this business was the most amount of joy that I got in my life was booking, an amazing trip with points and miles, because I had tons of student debt, and I was just starting out in the corporate world, and I had to, I wanted to travel. I wanted to see things. And my wife had traveled, didn't have student debt, so I had to figure it out pretty quickly. She wasn't my wife yet; she was my girlfriend, so I had to figure it out.
Yeah. So before you had Thrifty Traveler, who are you dumping all this information on? Was it just you and Nick firing it back and forth? Were you just dumping it all in Erica's lap? Like, where did this information go before you were able to get it out on thriftytraveler.com?
I think when I knew that there was like a business angle, is we would go to like parties or we'd go to weddings, and there would be like a circle around me talking about using points and miles. One person would know that I was into this, and then more people were like, oh, tell me more. And I was like, there's clearly a big market for this, and people don't know anything about it yet. But again, I was still just getting started with my brand new job out of college. I wasn't ready yet, but it took a few more years, and I was able to secure the domain name Thrifty Traveler, and then a lot of it, the rest is history.
So let's talk about that last bit. You don't do a whole lot of writing these days. You're busy running the company, but one of the stories that you did publish a few years ago was about that saga of securing the Thrifty Traveler domain. So walk us through how that went and how that came about, because I think it's such a cool story, and it's a little peek behind the curtain of what we do.
Yeah, so about 12 years ago, I was like, this is what I have to do. I have to start some kind of a points and miles website or flight deal related, just cheap travel website. So I sat down, and I still have this spreadsheet, and I wrote down like 15 different name variations of what the website should be called. Some of them were awful, really, really awful, and I do not want to repeat them. But one of them was thriftytraveler.com, and that was an existing domain. When I went to it, it had not been updated in many, 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 many years. So I reached out to the owner of the website. It would have been 2013-ish. And I was like, it doesn't look like you've updated the website. I tried to say it nicely. Would you ever be interested in selling? This is my idea. And she said, now this is going to sound comical maybe to many of you, but she was like, I want $2,000. And at that time I was like, this is too rich for me. I can't do this. So I waited another year, and I reached out to her and I told her, would you consider $1,000? And then she folded. And Mary Van Meer is her name. She passed away a few years ago, but she had run Thrifty Traveler for a long time. In fact, she had a snail mail newsletter that we have a copy here in the office that she sent out from her Florida house where she retired to 20,000 different subscribers who paid $5 an issue. Again, this is printed. Sent through the mail.
Different times, but that's still incredible.
Yes, in the 90s, in early 2000s, it's sent out. It is incredible. So what we've really done is taken the torch from her, digitized it, and kind of evolved and grew it.
I mean, I have read that newsletter. I've read the archived version of her site. Are the things that we talk about, like the nuts and bolts of redeeming miles and some of that stuff, different? Of course they are, and everything looks a lot different. But to me, it's crazy that the spirit of what we do is so eerily similar to exactly what Mary was doing in her printed newsletter, hand stuffing these issues out to 20,000 subscribers. It's pretty fun.
It is. And I'll share one last thing that I don't think I've told either of you guys. When we first started corresponding, Mary and I, she told me when I launched the site, I had her look at it. And one of the things she told me, she's like, I don't see your smiling face, and I don't see your wife's smiling face either. And she's like, people want to see you. They want to trust you. And I think it's interesting, now that we're doing this podcast, it's trying to get our team more and more in front of people. And I think that advice that I got from Mary, over a decade ago is kind of why we're doing what we're doing now. So it feels really good. And I'm excited to, get Thrifty Traveler and the whole team in front of more and more people.
So was there a point where you thought that you might be onto something here with Thrifty Traveler?
Yeah. The first couple years of, launching any new business, I mean, you don't make any money. You lose probably quite a bit of money, which was the same story for me. But I launched Thrifty Traveler Premium, our flight deal alert service in 2017. And that was a huge kind of financial risk. Poured my heart and soul into it, launched it. And my wife and I happened to be staying at the Hyatt Zilara Cancun when it launched, which seems appropriate. On points, of course, high points. And like the first day, like 2,000 people signed up.
Wow.
All this money came in. And back then we were only charging $20 per subscriber.
And I just let's pause and point out those 2,000 people, if they're still with us, are still paying $20 a year for Thrifty Traveler Premium, because one of the things that we do is there's a price lock for life. Whatever price you join at, whatever the full subscription rate is at that time, that is the price that you pay until you decide to cancel. So there are 2,000 subscribers maybe who are still paying $20 a year.
$20. And if you have a time machine, if you could head back there and subscribe, you'd be saving yourself quite a bit of money. But we launched it. It was like thousands of people were signing up. And I looked at Eric and I was like, this is actually going to work. And I don't think she was actually that surprised. She's like, I thought it was going to work. And I was like, oh, wow, I married the right woman. She has a lot more faith in me than I have in myself. So, that was definitely the pivotal point where I was like, this is actually going to be something where I can quit my full-time job, which I still was working full-time as a bank examiner for the federal government. And I knew that, in a few short months, this is going to be a significant amount of money that I could quit my full-time job, which is obviously every business owner or entrepreneur's dream.
Do you remember any of the first couple of flight deals that you sent or that you found?
I think they've been passed around the office.
Oh, yeah.
They look very rudimentary.
It's
as with any type of art, the first couple versions that come out are pretty ugly. And the format has improved dramatically. But it's the types of deals that came out, man. No, I can't recall any specifically. I do remember that there was an Emirates deal that came out and crashed the website right before we launched Premium, and that was kind of when I knew that we had to pivot and push hard into flight deals.
And that's a piece that maybe a lot of people who are listening to this, certainly our premium subscribers, may not realize, is that Thrifty Traveler Premium now, our flight deal service, is our bread and butter and kind of what we're known for here. But that wasn't the original vision. The original vision was Thrifty Traveler of just kind of, leveraging points and miles to travel for nearly free. And of course, we still do plenty of that. But how has that vision changed since that Emirates deal crashed the website?
Yeah, let's go back to that. That would have been Christmas of 2015. I posted Emirates deal from the US departing from like, I don't know what, 5 or 6 different gateways to Dubai. And it was like $500. And it crashed the website for like 3 or 4 days.
Which is what every business owner wants, to be
Which
clear.
is horrifying. But now you look back on it, you're like, oh, that's great. That's cute. That's cute. You didn't understand, what you were getting yourself into. But that was, when no one else worked for Thrifty Traveler back then. It was just me. And I was like, this flight deal seems like this is where it's at. And that is where we started to pivot more from points and miles, like you were talking about, Kyle, to flight deals, because it's a broader audience. I just, starting your own business, entrepreneurship is never a straight road. It's always meandering, and you never know where it's going to go, but you got to lean into what's working. And flight deals were what worked. So we pivoted to flight deals. And then ultimately, we brought it back around to points and miles now, as well as cash deals, which is kind of beautiful. It's come, full circle.
How much do you think that the pandemic has changed how people think about travel, and therefore how they think about flight deals and what they're willing to do and what their appetite for learning about points and miles is? I mean, you talked about that circle of people around you at parties or weddings or whatever, and just wanting to pick your brain. I feel like that circle is only getting bigger in my personal life and in my professional life too here.
There's no question during the pandemic, quite a few things changed. Points and miles went mainstream. There's no circles anymore around me at weddings because everybody knows about this stuff or is aware of it, at least. It's not as, secretive or seeming to other people. And I think that's where it's really shifted. But at the same time, there's still plenty of opportunities out there, for booking these amazing, points and miles deals or finding that cash ticket like we were talking about.
For someone who's maybe newer to points and miles and award travel, like, I was one of those kind of jumped on during the pandemic people as well. And things have changed a lot in 5 years, things that I thought would never change. You've seen it happening for a lot longer than that. What are some of the biggest shifts that you've seen to kind of show people what it was like way back when you started in points and miles?
I think some of the biggest changes, and let me just say, first off, people always say that, oh, this is the golden age of points and miles. Like this won't last. People were saying that in, 2010, 2015, 2020, and here we are in 2025, that the music is going to stop soon, but it just keeps going. The airlines need us to remain profitable. The banks love it as well. I think the rules have changed significantly. Like it used to be that you could apply for like 10 Alaska credit cards, and you could do that. I don't remember exactly how you could do it, but you could do it.
Right.
And there were just fewer rules. Again, it was really like the Wild West. And I feel like the restrictions that have come on, over the last decade have obviously shifted the game. But again, there's always, one door closes and another door opens.
Yeah. I think one of the best examples of that is how, a lot of people cry about dynamic pricing, which can definitely hurt when you're looking at a Sky Miles Delta One fare for 500,000 miles or something. I mean, some of that stuff gets really nasty, but there's also so much opportunity in dynamic pricing. We've seen it with Virgin's new model of pricing their own seats and how cheap we saw those get, 21,000 points each way. And
right.
There's like, I hear a lot about how great points and miles used to be before I got started. A lot of back in my days from old gold guys like you.
Very old. I don't have much time left.
Yeah. But, there's still so much opportunity out there. And the fun part is that we're all in this every day searching for it together. So it's pretty cool to hear you talk about what it was like over 10 years and what it's going to be like in the future here.
Other than this moment right now, sitting between the two of us
My
in
dream.
our makeshift studio in our office, what memory or two stands out the most? Whether it's just, a trip that you took as a result of making this shift from the corporate world and having the freedom to travel more while making this your life, or just something, that happened in the evolution of what Thrifty Traveler does as a business. Like, what really jumps out at you as highlights of the last 10 years?
I think one thing that I know both of you were a part of was we used to actually have our office. We didn't have an office until
Right.
a couple of years ago, or several years ago. And we used to meet in my wife, Eric, and I's garage. And we used to meet in the yard in the summer. Like, we're really like a garage startup. And the fact that, both of you guys have, come from, a very, very small team to now, we have 25 plus. We're moving into a new office shortly. I feel like that feels like just incredible growth in a very short amount of time. So I do miss the the outdoor meetings in our old. Yeah, go ahead.
Are we about to tell the story of when Gunnar came for his final interview?
Oh,
When
absolutely.
he had to run the gauntlet.
I'll never forget that. I was interviewing during the pandemic, and I remember getting the second interview. I interviewed with the leadership team, and then I got a second interview, and it's like, you're going to meet the whole team, and it's going to be in my front yard, is what Jared sent me. And I was talking to my wife. I was like, "Is this weird? What's going to happen here?" And she was like, "He just gave you the address to his house. I think you're going to get the job."
Did he tell you to bring your own lawn chair?
Yeah, you told me to bring my own lawn chair. I didn't do that.
Bring your own lawn chair. We'll provide the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. So I didn't follow the one interview instruction. Still got hired. Nailed it. But yeah, I sat in a lawn chair provided to me in a firing squad of the 6 members of the Thrifty Traveler team. And everyone's just lobbing questions at me, and we're sitting out in the yard on a beautiful summer day in South Minneapolis. But I'll never forget that. That was the funniest job interview I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to top that.
No, it's
No,
gonna be tough.
That's the peak.
That's it. That was the peak for me.
Well, Jared, thanks for talking about this stuff with us. It's fun to kind of look back, and obviously you've been doing this for 10 years. You talked about how the rules have changed around credit cards. How do you think people's appetite for travel has changed, and how people get the information about this? Because we're sitting here doing our third podcast. This is new to us. Podcasts certainly aren't new, but there are so many different ways that people are learning about these things for the first time, and how much those rules are changing, and what the new sweet spots are, all of that stuff.
As far as the evolution of Thrifty Traveler, we're always going to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
Whether it's email still remains king for us for, our flight deal alerts, our many newsletters that we have. But yeah, I mean, we're going to follow the traffic, and obviously podcasts are a piece of that, social, etc.
All right. Here's to the next 10 years then.
To the next 10.
Cheers.
Next 10 years and more front yard lawn chair interviews.
We got to bring those back. Come on. Outdoor interviews forever. Listener question?
Listener question.
All right. We get this question all the time from lots of different listeners, but I'm going to make it my own here and ask it of Jared. So few travelers probably know that you got started in travel and award travel from Fargo, North Dakota. What advice do you have and go-to strategies, I guess, for traveling from smaller regional airports and still making the most out of your points and miles?
Yeah. So for those of you guys who don't know, Fargo, North Dakota, the example here, smaller regional airport. I think Hector there has, 10-ish gates, and I think they're getting redoing their entire airport. But anyhow, it can be tough to find, flight deals from smaller airports. If you're at JFK or you're at LAX or you live in Dallas or Chicago or even here, in Minneapolis, flight deals happen more frequently than they do in some of these smaller cities. So what do you do? There are cash deals, especially in economy cabins out of every airport in the US, big and small. So that's the first thing. It is, and of course, Thrifty Traveler Premium is the key to finding those, because otherwise it's a needle in a haystack. But beyond that, if you're using your points and miles and you want to fly in a business or first class cabin, big thing is positioning. Getting from an airport like Fargo to Minneapolis, the closest nearby hub, or if you want to go to the closest major hub from Fargo, which would be Chicago, you might have to book a separate flight to Minneapolis or Chicago, and then use your points and miles, or book a cheap business or first class flight from there. Obviously, there's some risk, and there's plenty of content about that at thriftytraveler.com for booking and positioning flights. But that's the key. That's how you can take advantage of some of these crazy, insane deals.
It's such a counterintuitive thing that's so second nature to the three of us, and probably a lot of people listening to this is, oh, well, just book 2 flights instead of 1, and then you're going to save a lot of money. But when you do the math of just searching from Fargo to Chicago and then Chicago to Rome, for example, I mean, if you were to just search Google Flights or American Airlines or whatever from Fargo to Rome and have them build that connection for you instead, I mean, we're often talking $300 more, $700 more, $800
at least. Yes.
Yeah. So the savings can be really incredible.
Yeah, and that's a good thing is to always do some comparison shopping. See what would it be to go from Fargo to Rome versus Chicago to Rome, or even Dallas to Rome. And I think you're going to be shocked. Right. I mean, I know we talk about positioning flights. It's the most normal thing in the world. It's mental. It's a little mental, and like I said, not without some risk of having 2 separate tickets. And if there's a delay or a cancellation, it can get complicated fast. But risk reward, you can obviously save a boatload by doing this, and all 3 of us have done this many times, and it works.
Yeah. Have either of you ever missed a flight by booking a positioning flight?
No, I book such aggressively long layovers, and that's why I pay for credit cards to give me lounge access. But I've never missed one to date.
Yes,
knock on wood.
Me either as well. And I also am on the aggressive side of, 3 to 5 hour probably buffer, which can get a little painful, but lounge access goes far.
When it comes,
also knock on wood, I also have not missed one. I, however, have booked some incredibly foolish positioning flights, not least of which 45 minutes in Miami.
Oh my God.
But I made it.
You made it. Yeah. That's good.
Would I tell our listeners to do that? Absolutely not. No, go aggressive. Yeah.
Don't listen to Kyle.
No.
Listen to Kyle. Don't be like Kyle. Here's the answer. I do love when it comes to smaller regional airports when things work in reverse and they get some special deals. We get stuck with hub penalties here, especially in Minneapolis. So it's always fun to see some of the regionals get some of the lower fares. I just a couple of my friends just booked Oktoberfest flights out of Rochester instead of Minneapolis. They're going to take the shuttle down there to save like 30,000, 40,000 sky miles each way. And they did really well on the deal. And we'll see if they take that last flight from Minneapolis to Rochester or not. I won't blow up their spot. But
yeah, that's a good example too. If there's an airport, within an hour of you, before you book your flight, check. It might not be the most convenient, but maybe you can save quite a bit. Because I've driven down to Rochester, Minnesota too, which is an hour-ish, a little bit over an hour away. I flew to Madrid twice on a Delta ticket many years ago. I have 2 kids now, and I would never do that. But back in the day, I had ultimate flexibility, and if you can save $300, maybe it makes sense.
That's awesome.
Just get creative.
Yeah, a lot of good tips there. If you want your question answered on a next episode of the podcast at thriftytraveler.com. We'll try to get to your questions in the next episode. And our last thing here, Kyle's going to put Jared on the spot.
All right. You ready, boss?
I'm ready.
All right. If you could resurrect one award redemption from the last 10 years, something that the airlines killed. I'm not talking a full award chart. I'm talking one specific redemption. You hinted at something before, and I think that's going
to be it.
Yeah.
And I believe it was, so it's Alaska miles. Emirates first redemption, I think it was 100,000 Alaska miles one way, but you could have a connection past Dubai for, I don't remember exactly what, but it was not much more, or it was the same. I cannot recall.
Was the connection also in first?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Nice.
At least the way I remember it.
Yeah.
And that was the ultimate just deal. You'd call into Alaska on their phone line back then before you could even do it online. And they still do have amazing customer service. And it was just a delightful experience using your miles to book, a $15,000, $20,000 ticket. And you're like, this should not exist. And and I know, you've already pointed out how old I'm getting. And a lot of this travel was pre-pandemic, but it was easy to book too.
Yeah. Was it 100,000 miles and what, $19 in taxes and
fees? It was
fees?
like not even, you don't even think about it. You're booking it and you're like, and I'd get on, flying, Emirates, you'd be like, how is this possible? How can you do this? And this was the time when people were opening like 5, 6 or more Alaska credit cards, getting, I think it was like 100,000 Alaska bonus. I can't remember or recall exactly what it was, but it added up quick. And I feel like for me, that was maybe like peak points and miles.
Fun while it lasted, but as you pointed out before, doors close, other doors open. There's always going to be some amazing redemption or some amazing flight deal around the corner. We just got to wait to find it.
And we're definitely going to find it.
Yeah.
We definitely are. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for listening to this special episode of the Thrifty Traveler podcast. It would mean a lot to us if you could rate and review us on your podcast platform of choice, and like and subscribe to Thrifty Traveler on YouTube. These shows are a lot more fun on YouTube. Go check us out over there, please. It'll also help others find the show when you rate and review, and send it around. Someone that needs a vacation, send them this podcast. And if you have feedback for us, just send me a note, podcast@thriftytraveler.com. We would love to hear from you. Kyle, thank you as always. And Jared, thanks for coming on your show.
Thank you, guys.
This episode was produced by our co-founder, Nick Cerati, and your number one favorite podcast host, Gunnar Olsen. It was edited by David Strutt. Our theme music is by Benjamin Tissot.